303 billion barrels. That's how much oil sits beneath Venezuelan soil according to the leaked White House documents obtained through classified channels. At current market prices, that's $17.3 trillion worth of energy reserves, more than the GDP of the entire European Union. And on January 3rd, 2026, the United States took control of it all through a military operation that captured a sitting president in 37 minutes. But here's what the leaked files reveal that changes everything. This wasn't about democracy promotion or humanitarian intervention. The classified documents show this operation was planned 18 months in advance as part of something called Critical Resource Acquisition Protocol. A protocol that follows a pattern we've seen before, 3 times in recorded history to be exact. Every time a major empire reaches the breaking point of fiscal mathematics, they do identical things. Same sequence, same timing, same devastating outcome. The Venezuela seizure wasn't the beginning of American decline. It was confirmation that we've entered the final phase. While mainstream media focused on geopolitical narratives, the leaked documents reveal something far more significant. Something that only happens when institutions with perfect information recognize mathematical impossibilities. This isn't about Venezuelan politics. This isn't about regional security. This is about a pattern that has destroyed empires for over 2 millennia. A pattern so predictable that once you understand it, you'll see it unfolding everywhere around you. By the end of this analysis, you'll understand exactly what the White House files reveal, why they matter more than any military victory or diplomatic achievement. And what historical precedent tells us happens when empires start seizing resources through force. Because there's a cycle here, a mathematical certainty that no empire has ever escaped. The seizures have already begun. The only question is whether you'll recognize what they represent. Every major empire in recorded history follows an identical resource acquisition pattern during terminal decline, not similar patterns. Exact sequences with mathematical predictability. The leaked White House documents show America has entered what classified analysis calls Phase 4 resource urgency. But history shows us this phase has happened before, 3 times, always with identical outcomes. Phase 1, productive dominance. The empire controls resources through economic superiority. Their currency is trusted globally. Nations willingly trade resources for imperial money because that money holds value. Trade flows naturally toward imperial markets. Resource acquisition happens through commerce, not conquest. Phase 2, currency debasement. The empire begins printing money beyond productive capacity. Resource suppliers notice purchasing power erosion. Trust in imperial currency starts fragmenting. Some suppliers begin demanding higher prices or alternative payment methods, but the empire maintains access through military intimidation and established relationships. Phase 3, financial desperation. Currency loses significant value. Foreign suppliers actively seek alternatives to imperial money. Resource access through normal commercial channels becomes problematic. The empire faces choice, accept reduced access or use force. They always choose force. Phase 4, forced acquisition. Military operations disguised as humanitarian interventions. Resource-rich territories occupied under various pretexts. Energy supplies redirected to imperial markets at below-market prices. This creates temporary relief, but accelerates global rejection of imperial currency. The pattern has destroyed 3 global superpowers. Let me show you exactly how it unfolds. 2nd century Rome controlled the Mediterranean through economic dominance. Roman currency was accepted everywhere. Egyptian grain flowed to Rome through voluntary trade agreements. North African provinces supplied minerals willingly. Spanish silver mines operated under Roman commercial law. Phase 1, complete resource access through economic superiority. 3rd century crisis changed everything. Rome debased currency to fund military campaigns and domestic programs. Silver content in coins dropped from 95% to 5% over 50 years. Trading partners noticed. Egyptian merchants began demanding payment in goods rather than debased currency. Northern provinces started withholding grain shipments. Phase 2, resource suppliers losing confidence in Roman money. By the 4th century, resource access became problematic. Provincial governors refused tax payments in worthless currency. Germanic tribes demanded tribute in silver, not coins. Egyptian grain supplies became irregular. Rome faced starvation despite controlling the largest empire in history. Phase 3, commercial resource acquisition failing. Rome's response was predictable. Military seizure of Egyptian granaries, forced requisitions from Gallic farms, Germanic raids disguised as defensive operations, but designed to capture cattle and grain. Resource wars multiplied across imperial borders. But forced acquisition accelerated imperial fragmentation. Every seizure created enemies. Every raid generated resistance. Military costs exploded while resource access actually decreased. Within 50 years, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Resource wars didn't save it, they finished it. Phase 4 completed, pattern confirmed. 18th century Britain controlled global trade through naval supremacy and currency acceptance. The pound sterling was trusted worldwide. Indian spices, Chinese tea, American cotton all flowed to London through voluntary commercial agreements. Britain paid with money that held value everywhere. Phase 1. Global resource access through economic dominance. Napoleonic wars forced massive money printing. British government debt increased 800% between 1790 and 1815. Currency purchasing power declined significantly. Trading partners began questioning pound sterling stability. Some colonies started demanding gold rather than paper money. Phase 2. Confidence erosion among resource suppliers. Post-war period brought resource access problems. Indian merchants preferred dealing with other European powers. Chinese authorities restricted British trade access. American cotton producers explored alternative buyers. Commercial relationships that had lasted generations began fragmenting. Phase 3. Normal trade channels disrupting. Britain's response followed historical pattern. Military operations across India disguised as peacekeeping but designed to secure resource access. Chinese opium wars, officially about trade rights, but actually about forcing resource extraction. African colonial expansion presented as civilization missions but focused on mineral access. Resource wars provided temporary relief. India remained under control. Chinese ports stayed open. African mines continued operating. But global resistance to British imperial currency accelerated. By 1931, Britain abandoned gold standard. By 1944, America replaced Britain as global financial center. Resource seizures didn't prevent decline. They confirmed it was already too late. Phase 4, complete. Historical pattern verified. Now let me show you what the leaked White House documents reveal about America's current resource acquisition strategy. The classified files contain 18 months of planning documents for what they term hemispheric energy security operations. Venezuela was just the beginning. The documents outline systematic resource control across multiple regions. But here's what makes these documents historically significant. They follow the exact same pattern as Roman grain seizures and British colonial resource wars. America has entered Phase 4. The leaked files show perfect awareness of fiscal mathematics. Quote, from National Security Council, document NSC 2024-177. Dollar purchasing power decline of 43% since 2020 creates urgent resource access challenges. Commercial acquisition increasingly problematic as suppliers demand alternative payment methods. Translation. American money is losing value so fast that resource suppliers don't want it anymore. Document NSC 2024-203 states, Venezuelan operation represents template for securing critical resources when conventional commercial relationships prove insufficient. Translation, when people won't sell to you, you take by force. The files reveal systematic planning for resource operations across multiple continents, energy reserves in West Africa, mineral deposits in Central Asia, agricultural regions in South America, all identified for potential security intervention if commercial access becomes problematic. This isn't defensive planning. This is resource acquisition through military force when currency debasement makes normal trade impossible. Exactly what Rome did in the 4th century. Exactly what Britain did in the 19th century. The pattern repeats with mathematical precision. But the leaked documents reveal something even more significant about oil prices specifically. Internal Energy Department projections show Venezuela operation as first step toward what they call North American energy independence through regional integration. Document DOE 2024-891 projects oil prices reaching $250 per barrel under their successful hemispheric energy consolidation scenario. Why $250? Because that's what happens when resource wars begin. When empires start seizing energy supplies through force, global markets recognize the breakdown of commercial systems. Oil becomes a weapon rather than a commodity. Prices reflect geopolitical risk rather than supply-demand fundamentals. The leaked files show American planners understand this completely. They're not trying to lower energy costs. They're trying to control energy access when currency becomes worthless for international trade. Venezuela's 303 billion barrels represent $17.3 trillion at current prices. At projected prices of $250 per barrel, those reserves become worth $75 trillion. More than double America's total GDP. But here's what history teaches about resource wars. They provide temporary relief while accelerating long-term collapse. Roman grain seizures fed the population for decades, but they also generated resistance that ultimately destroyed imperial control. British resource wars maintained living standards through the 19th century, but they created the conditions for 20th century imperial fragmentation. Resource acquisition through force always follows the same trajectory. Initial success, temporary stability, growing resistance, accelerated collapse. The leaked White House documents suggest American planners either don't understand this historical pattern or believe they can break it through superior military technology. History suggests they're wrong. Every empire believes military superiority can overcome economic mathematics. Roman legions were unbeatable. British naval power was absolute. American military spending exceeds the next 10 countries combined. None of that matters when currency loses purchasing power and resource suppliers prefer dealing with rising powers instead of declining ones. China is already offering alternative payment methods for oil. UN-denominated energy contracts are expanding rapidly. Russia accepts rubles and gold for energy supplies. Even traditional American allies are exploring alternatives to dollar-based energy transactions. The Venezuela seizure was America's response to this commercial displacement. But seizures accelerate rather than reverse the process. Every resource war confirms to global suppliers that dealing with America requires military risk. Every operation demonstrates that American currency has become insufficient for normal commercial relationships. The leaked documents show awareness of this dynamic. Quote from Defense Department Analysis, DDA 2024-445. Operations in resource-critical regions likely to accelerate alternative payment system development among non-aligned nations. They know resource wars will push more countries toward Chinese and Russian alternatives. They're doing it anyway because they have no choice. When currency debasement reaches mathematical breaking points, empires must choose between reduced resource access or military acquisition. They always choose military acquisition, even when they know it accelerates collapse. The Venezuela operation wasn't about helping Venezuelan people or promoting democracy. The leaked files show zero mention of humanitarian goals or democratic transition. Every document focuses on energy supply chains, refinery control, and export redirection toward American markets. This was resource seizure disguised as humanitarian intervention, exactly what Rome did with Egyptian grain, exactly what Britain did with Indian resources. The pattern doesn't change because human incentives don't change. But the leaked documents reveal something that should concern everyone paying attention to historical patterns. Venezuela was explicitly designed as a template for future operations. Document NSC 2024-234 outlines replication methodology for resource security operations in multiple theaters. Translation: they plan to do this everywhere resources become commercially inaccessible. West African oil reserves, Central Asian natural gas, South American lithium deposits, all identified for potential security intervention when normal trade relationships break down. The documents project timeline of 18 to 36 months for hemispheric energy consolidation. That's how long they estimate before resource wars spread beyond Venezuela. Historical patterns suggest this timeline is accurate. Resource acquisition phases typically last 2 to 3 years before generating enough resistance to become counterproductive. But those 2 to 3 years represent the most dangerous period in imperial decline, because resource wars create the conditions for economic warfare from rising powers. China and Russia now have justification for any economic measures against America. Currency attacks, trade disruption, technology transfer restrictions, all legitimized by American resource seizures. The leaked documents show no analysis of this dynamic. American planners focused entirely on resource acquisition with no consideration of economic retaliation potential. This represents the same strategic blindness that characterized Roman and British resource wars. Short-term tactical success purchased through long-term strategic catastrophe. Oil at $250 per barrel isn't just a price projection. It's a signal that commercial energy markets have broken down completely. That force rather than currency has become the primary means of resource acquisition. When that happens, global systems fragment rapidly. Alternative payment networks expand, regional trading blocs develop, dollar-based commerce contracts toward American sphere of influence exclusively. The leaked White House documents reveal perfect awareness of American fiscal mathematics. They know currency debasement has reached unsustainable levels. They know commercial resource acquisition is becoming impossible, but their solution follows the historical pattern exactly. Military seizure rather than fiscal discipline. This guarantees the same outcome that destroyed Rome and Britain. Temporary resource access, purchased through accelerated imperial fragmentation. The Venezuela files aren't just leaked documents. They're confirmation that America has entered the final phase of empire decline. Resource wars have begun. Alternative systems are expanding. Global resistance is organizing. The pattern doesn't care about American military superiority or technological advancement. It doesn't require permission or consensus. It unfolds with mathematical certainty, like gravity, like history. The leaked White House documents confirm what sophisticated observers recognized months ago. America has moved beyond currency debasement into forced resource acquisition. Phase 4 is no longer approaching. Phase 4 has arrived. Oil prices at $250 per barrel represent more than inflation. They represent the breakdown of commercial systems that have maintained global stability for 75 years. The seizures have begun. The pattern is accelerating. The only question is whether you'll recognize what the leaked documents actually reveal. This wasn't about Venezuela. This was about confirmation that the mathematics have become impossible and the solutions have become desperate. History suggests what comes next. The same thing that always comes next when empires start seizing resources through force. Temporary success, followed by systematic collapse. The White House files weren't leaked by accident. They were leaked because people inside the system recognize the pattern and understand the outcome. The documents reveal the plan. History reveals the result. Resource wars don't save empires, they finish them.